Well, hello everyone, and welcome to Your Morning Latte here at Coffee Shop Studios. And you can see that I am back in the chair. So I wanted to do this segment and wish everyone a happy Thanksgiving. That's coming up pretty quick, and we have a lot to be thankful for out there. I wanted to show you a little image I got here. Let's see if I can pull this thing up. Yep, that is, let me transition over, and that is a coffee mug that I got from the Pocono Mountain Bible Conference that I attended over the weekend this past week ago. And had a great time up there. I traveled around for about 2 weeks and met a whole lot of different people. I covered about 13 states. It was about, I don't know, about 3,500 miles. And talked to all walks of life at various locations around, from here over to Alabama and all the way up to Indiana and then across to Pennsylvania, and came down through Maryland, West Virginia, Virginia, and Tennessee, and Georgia, and kind of went back the other way. So anyway, the I picked up that mug while I was up at the conference center, and it was quite a treat. Had a lot of good food up there. There was a lady that was cooking, and she had a cooking team back there. Her name is Sally, and let me tell you, she did a great job. I want to commend her, along with Tim Hurd is the one that put the Bible Summit together, and he did a wonderful job. And I know it was a lot of stress in putting all that stuff together, and it was a great group of guys. We gathered and talked about leadership and various things that we could take back to our own churches and communities, and really embolden us to take a step forward and get in there and fight for Christ. So anyway, I'm thankful that the guys were there. They helped me a whole lot. The leadership, like I said, Tim, Dave, John was kind of running the cameras in the back there. So we had a great opportunity to share Christ and share different ideas between the group and the guys and so forth. And we broke out into, smaller groups, and it was a wonderful time. So anyway, as you gather around the table this week, whatever day that may fall on, some people meet on Thursday, some people Friday, some people the way before. It really doesn't matter as long as you're gathering together and you're giving thanks to God for all the blessings that He has given you and this great nation that we live in. We're blessed to live here. We have a lot of privileges and rights that some of the other countries do not have and do not enjoy. And that's one of the real reasons that, they're clamoring to get here. And it's not always in a legal manner, we know. But, I wanted to put that out there. And, say a happy Thanksgiving. And as you gather around and you get with your family and so forth, just remember that, those around you are very precious, and, they may not be around for too much longer. So, that's always a it's something to remember. And I know that many have lost loved ones and they miss them at this time of year, and sometimes that's a heartache that you have to go through. But you'll see them again one day. When we all go to heaven, we'll be singing up there. So, when I was on my travels, I had a chance to go into a place called Mammoth Cave. It's up in Kentucky, just north of Nashville, and that's me there. I'm standing in one of the walkways there in the cave. It was about a 2.5 hour hike. Uh, I think the guy said there was like 600 steps. Uh, it was a sight to see, and I think it's been probably about 50 years since I had been there. I was there, you know, when I was just a little bitty guy, and got to see some of the things, and guess what? The cave hasn't changed. it's it's still the same as it was, and anyway, it was a lot of fun, but it was very strenuous, and I got up there and I forgot my walking stick, uh, and I had to go back to this little camp store, and had a chance to discuss Christ with a lady that they're there in the store. So it was a lot of great opportunities that came along with that. Uh, it was just a wonderful time for everyone. Oh, this next picture that I have here, this is the Pocono Mountain Conference Center up there, Bible Conference Center, and you see the cabins along the way. But in the back was the main hall, the dining hall, and then out of the picture there was the sanctuary, our gathering hall where we all met and worshiped and sang and heard from various preachers that did an excellent job. And we must remember, and this is something that should be shouted. Tell our kids, that freedom is not free, that it's fought for, uh, and it's an ongoing battle that we must fight to enjoy the freedoms that we have. And some of the things that you might want to be thankful for is the Constitution that we live under here in the United States. That's not something that's in a lot of other nations. They have their own constitutions and certain freedoms and so forth, but we're afforded the opportunity, given the wisdom of our forefathers, of some of the things that these people in the other parts of the world don't have. We have a constitution, we have some rights and so forth, and I wanted to touch on some of those, and the let's see, the First Amendment here, and I pulled this up, and you can read it for yourself. Just go in, say U.S. Constitution and text, and you can pull it up online and read it. But the First Amendment says, Congress shall make no law respecting an establishment of religion, or prohibiting the free exercise thereof, or abridging the freedom of speech or of the press, or the right of the people peacefully to assemble and to petition the government for redress of grievances. And I wanted to highlight that phrase in there, Congress shall make no law. And Congress shall make no law prohibiting the free exercise thereof, which is talking about the religion, exercising your freedom to gather and worship in your whatever it is that your religion happens to be. There's that word in there, or either. The government can't establish a religion, nor can the government prohibit you the free exercise of your worship. And I know that you heard the stories of various churches. One of the big ones out in California, John MacArthur, there was this ongoing battle of the governor trying to shut the church down, and Orange County was just hammering them with all these fees and all this nonsense because they chose to meet. And you could you could go to a department store, but you couldn't go to church. And then they come out and they said, well, you can go to a strip club, but you can't go to church. You got to have certain. John, I remember John going through this litany of things that it was just ridiculous that the health department was putting upon them, and they're fining them $1,000 a day, and they finally ended up winning that lawsuit, and the state had to pay them, I don't know, 800,000 or something. I don't know. It was a large sum of money that came out of that, but. What you saw was the government twisting the Constitution to say something it wasn't. They didn't have the power to do. They said, well, it's a harmful meeting, and and they tried to twist it and say, well, it's harmful to some people and so forth, and you take reasonable precautions, but now we've 18, 19 months later, we've learned a whole lot more about what's going on with this pandemic, if that's what you want to classify it as. There was a photo that my aunt had while I was on the road. I went up and visited her for a day, and ended up, I stayed the night and left the next day. But she had some photographs that were very old. My grandfather was in World War One, and he was stationed in San Antonio in what they call Kelly Field. And he was a mechanic. He worked on airplanes and Jeeps, and if it had a motor, he worked on it. And I remember seeing a photo of that my aunt had gotten, and I forget what she said, but it was tucked away somewhere. And she finally got these records, and I think they were with some other relatives and so forth that were passed down. But they were rolled out on this. It was like a mat, and it was glued onto the mat, and it was rolled up like a scroll, the old scroll. So we rolled that thing out, and I got some pictures of that, and I was hoping I should have put them on here, but maybe I can insert them when I do my editing and so forth. But there's a picture in there where all of the planes are sitting outside of the hangars, and the reason for that is during the Spanish flu. That was a real pandemic. My grandfather was stationed there during that time, and the reason the planes were outside of the hangars, and they were all outside, they were all out on the field, is because the servicemen were taking up all of the hangars. All the guys that were coming back and had this flu, and they were dying. I mean, it was a mess. And by God's grace and providence, my grandfather survived all that. And he and one of the other guys would basically sneak off base and go into San Antonio and gather aspirin or whatever they could find. We're talking about 1917, 1918, 1919. Medicine wasn't as advanced, obviously, as it was today. I mean, you were coming right off the heels of the Civil War. There was a lot of things have happened since then, but your medical technology was not what it was, so whatever he could gather, they would bring back and try to take care of these service guys that were stationed there. So, and then, as they were coming back from France, it was a mess. So anyway, it was very, very, I was very grateful to have seen that. And my aunt hadn't seen her in many years. And she pulled out that and was able to get some pictures of that. So I'll have that for my kids and grandkids to carry on. But Anyway, I wanted to get back and talk a little bit about this, the freedom of religion and the government's pro, pro, tongue-tied, the prohibition from them establishing any laws that would prohibit the exercise of the freedom of exercise of religion. And you see this being attacked as people are following their uh, religious exemptions. As far as the mandates are concerned, they have certain religious beliefs, and whatever that belief is, uh, and the government's trying to attack that and put up this litmus test. Well, this religion is this, and this religion is that, and we'll accept this one, we won't accept that one. You know, First Amendment clearly states the government cannot establish one religion over another. And I wanted to show this to you. And this is from some history on James Madison. And he was, let me get my paper here. And I'm going to read this. This is coming out of, I believe, the Middle Tennessee State University Education Department. And I've got a link down on the next slide there. But Madison was born in Virginia in 1769. He enrolled in a college of New Jersey, which is now called Princeton University. And he was under the influence of the college's president called John Witherspoon. And his goal was to foster a spirit of liberty and free inquiry. So, what he went on to form and what we have in our Bill of Rights today, it reads here, it says he amended a draft language on religious liberty, liberty to remove a weaker word called toleration. That was, had its, they were going to use the word toleration to tolerate certain religions and so forth. And that, that still had the sense that, they were having favoritism and so forth. But what James declared, he says that all men are equally entitled to enjoy the free exercise of religion according to the dictates of conscience. Now, you've heard that a lot in recent months where people, are getting hit with a roadblock, and certain employers will say, well, what's the reason for this? And they go through this litany test trying to determine whether their religion is good enough for them to sign off on their exemption. And what James Madison, this was, right out of the box here. This is in 1776. He said, this is according to what dictates your conscience. Some of these people were talking, I've talked to airline pilots and people in the airline industry and so forth, and medical industry as well. And they were talking, and it says, well, you got to have a letter from your pastor. Well, that's illegal as well, because it's based on what the dictates of your conscience, on what you believe and what your religious beliefs are, not what your pastor says. Pastors vary from various denominations, from various beliefs and so forth, the Buddha or the, whatever your belief is, either Catholic or Protestant or whatever. So if you've got to have a backup document, then it totally negates the whole thing of what the bill was intended to do back when it was established. And I wrote in here, I'll pull this up, I'll do a transition over. It says the pamphlet, and what he's talking about is back in the Continental Congress, the federal government was under the Article of Confederation in 1780 to 1783. But the target of the pamphlet was a bill before the Virginia Assembly, supported by Governor Patrick Henry, that would have laid a general tax to pay Christian teachers a modest salary. It says the bill would not have established any one denomination. All Christian churches were eligible for the funds. But what it would have done is made Christianity the established religion of the state. And if you remember that go back centuries, you had the French Revolution. Martin Luther had nailed his theses on the door of the Wittenberg church there, and you had this groundswell of people that the church had been dictating what it was that they wanted them to listen to, and what was approved as far as what what could be stated in the church and so forth. And they were trying to get away from that mindset, because people were fleeing England, and they were fleeing various other parts of Europe and so forth. They've tried to get here to get away from all that so that they could practice their faith how they chose to do that. And it was what had happened was the Catholic Church and had basically become what the state is. And we won't get into all that political hoo-ha, but it was like the church dictated what was what. And you can go all the way back to the Jewish religion back in the time of Jesus, and the Sadducees and the Pharisees were dictating what the laws were, and it was so cumbersome that it was just a burden. Okay, so they were trying to get away from all that stuff, and I will go into this next slide here that might give you a little bit flavor as to what was going on. Don't get ahead of myself here. So you're, let me see. Okay, here it is. Madison considered the bill that was a dangerous abuse of power. He reasoned that if government could establish Christianity over other religions, then it would also have the power to elevate one Christian group over another, Baptist over Methodist, or whatever. Well, we like this one today, and we don't like that one, and we're going to favoritism. And you see that the government today is trying to tell people, well, we're not going to give you a religious exemption because your religion is not good enough. Okay? And they start doing these investigations and look into their background. And, well, you didn't believe it last week. Why do you believe it now? And, they get into all this crap. So Madison believed that the religion was a matter of individual conscience, and that given legislatures control over religious belief would inevitably lead to the violation of other basic rights. So you give the government a little bit of leeway, and what happens? They start nibbling away at other rights. You can see that exactly what's going on today. You could these 1776, 1780, 83, all the way up, up to 1800. It looks like a repeat of everything that's going on today. It's they're just constantly, the one party, the left, is trying to nibble away at what your rights should be, and say, well, we don't need that. It's not good anymore. Second Amendment's not good anymore. Nobody goes by that anymore. So anyway, that's where we are, and I wanted to get into that a little bit flavor. I know that I had talked on one other segment about Thomas Jefferson's letter, and I'll bring it up here. You may be able to see it, but you can pull it up. Just type in Thomas Jefferson's letter, and it was a letter to the Danbury Baptist Association. And what he says, and you go into that second paragraph, says, American people which declared that their legislature should make no law respecting an establishment of religion or prohibiting the free exercise thereof. He is going back and telling them that, this has already been established here. This is the Bill of Rights. This is what was established by the people, because they were trying to. There was a thing going on in Danbury, that's up in Connecticut, about the church or the legislature wanting to dictate what the church is supposed to do. And we've seen that over the past year. We have gotten away from that. That was one of the things that I saw, and I'll get into that a little bit later on in this segment of what I was seeing as my travels, because I was asking those specific questions. And what Thomas Jefferson was saying, he says, they established a wall, and that's where that term separation of church and state, which is not in the Constitution. A lot of these legislatures want to say, well, God doesn't belong in Congress, and guess what the pickle we're in now. And this is where it says on reading along, and this also comes from a website called loc.gov, and it's all of the documents and so forth on the letter that Thomas Jefferson had read. It says, the unedited draft of the Danbury Baptist letter makes it clear why Jefferson drafted it. And it had a ring of wall of eternal separation between church and state, and the duties of my station, which are merely temporal. Now, this was back in, 1802, okay? And merely temporal, because he wanted this to have a lasting effect of what the government would inevitably, and the forefathers had the foresight to see that, at some point in time, the government's going to come along and try to take away your rights, dictate what they're supposed to be, and get away from we the people. And it goes on down at the bottom. It says, merely temporal. Here was language as plain as Jefferson could make it to assure the Republican faith, and that was that we're a nation, we're a republic, okay? Not a democracy, we're a republic. Assures the Republican faith, that's not talking about the Republican Party, Republican faith, that their religious rights shall never be infringed by any act of mine. So Thomas Jefferson, being the president, was not going to, he made that very clear. You're not going to, pull the rug over my eyes and get me to sign something or do something that's going to cause any kind of infringement on your religious freedom. So that was some things that were going on. And this the next slide I'll go on by, because that one is talking about the dangerous power that would have established, because it was going to say that they were going to choose one particular Christian religion over another, and that would lead down the wrong road. Hey, we'll break it off on part one of that of our 4-part series in the Thanksgiving message. And the part one, we heard from people like James Madison and Thomas Jefferson, and we had some outstanding and very wisdom and knowledgeable founding fathers that formed this country into what it is, and had a vision, and it was also a divine intervention as to what would take place here in this country, and the blessings that has been spread around the world from what has happened here. I wanted to give a special thanks for our first responders, our police and firefighters, nurses and doctors that are out there on the front lines and unable to be with their families and taking care of things that give us the opportunity to meet with our family and have this special time together. I know a lot of people celebrate Thanksgiving on other days other than Thursday, but that's what's recognized here in the United States. I don't think they have Thanksgiving in any other place, right? So anyway, it's a special holiday for us to give thanks to God for all that he has given us, and we are grateful to him, and we ask that he shine upon this nation and continue to bless us in a way that will bring blessings to others. Also wanted to thank our military. We have a lot overseas that are separated from their families and unable to be with them. And hopefully there's a lot of phone calls going on today, a lot of video chats happening with their families and wives and sons and daughters, and talking to their either mom or dad that is stationed overseas, and they were able to do that. They're out there protecting the freedoms that we enjoy here that a lot of places don't have. There's a lot of I'd say direct attacks that are going on in this country that are attacking the freedoms that we have enjoyed for so many years, and a lot of people, a lot of our military have fought and died for. So it's a hard thing to see. It's one thing to have, foreign countries threatening our freedoms and our way of life, but it's another thing to have people on the inside that are supposed to be trusted officials and so forth attacking us from within. We have a domestic problem with that going on now. There's a lot of unrest around the world. We see a lot of things going on that sometimes we don't understand, and they just don't have, like our Bill of Rights. They don't have the freedom of religion. They don't have a right to speak out and speak out against their government. People speak out and they get put in jail or whatever. We've seen that happen in Australia. Recently, Austria has cracked down, and you think that they would learn from World War II when the Nazis were there, but I guess not. So anyway, be rest assured that we have a rock that we can call upon, a solid foundation of our faith in Jesus Christ, and he is here for us in this times of trouble, and he said that we're going to have a lot of it, and by golly, it's happening. People, I put a scripture in the beginning of this video, no sound. It was just a pop-up picture that I had taken during my travels and so forth, and I put in there the scripture from 2 Chronicles 7:14. But if you begin ahead of that, Solomon had finished the temple when he had built that, King Solomon, and he had dedicated the temple and so forth, and the Lord had appeared to Solomon. Okay, if you read in 2 Chronicles 12, or 2 Chronicles 7 verse 12, it'll say, "Then the Lord appeared to Solomon at night and said to him, I have heard your prayer and have chosen this place for myself as a house of sacrifice. If I shut up the heavens so that there is no rain, or I command the locusts to devour the land, or if I send pestilence among my people," verse 14, "my people who are called by my name humble themselves and pray and seek my face and turn from their wicked ways, then I will hear from heaven, will forgive their sin, and heal their land. Now my eyes will be open and my ears attentive to the prayer offered in this place." And a lot of people go back to that scripture and pray that prayer to heal our land. And we have a lot of problems here in the United States. And I know that prayer is prayed in various parts of the world, that God would look upon them. And we have a lot of things to answer for here in the United States. And hopefully God will shine his consonance and blessing upon us and keep us free. So anyway, glad you're listening in, and I would pray that you continue on in the series in part 2, and that's going to bring you, let me pull up my note, we'll continue in the First Amendment. We'll have some cafe talk, a little bit about Wacko Joe, Rittenhouse, the Second Amendment, and Waukesha, the tragedy that happened up there. So anyway, thank you, and keep the faith. And if you like this, hit that like button and subscribe, and put your comments down below. I appreciate you listening in. Have a blessed day.